Well, hello there, everyone. It is absolutely marvelous to see you back on the channel and ready for another round of this godforsaken challenge. Now, if you couldn't read the title, this is the second and final part in my Beating Minecraft Without Jumping challenge. If you've seen part 1 already, then you're in the right place. If not, it is highly recommended that you go and watch the first part. It's a banger video if I do say so myself. Now for a quick recap. In the previous episode, me and Elliot's attempts to collect the blaze rods we so desperately needed were thwarted time and time again, and eventually we had had enough. We were unable to think of any way of attacking the fortress but to rush headfirst into battle unprepared. But since the events of the last video, I flexed my brain cells just hard enough to come up with a new strategy, which I immediately got to briefing Elliot on. Here was the game plan. First and foremost, screw ladders. They were unusable in high-stakes moments and were only good for climbing sheer cliffs. Moreover, they actually wasted precious wood. So the first act of business was to find another way of moving upwards. We settled on slabs. You could make them from just about any material and they were more versatile. Overall, we were idiots for not thinking of this sooner. The next strategy was simple. Go to the Nether, get some gold, and trade with piglins and a bastion for ender pearls and fire resistance potions before we did anything. We would need the ender pearls later, and fire resistance potions would make fighting the blazes 1,000,000 times easier. And one final plan had come up. We called it Operation El Chapo. We would dig a tunnel from the nether wastes all the way to directly underneath the fortress pillar from before. This way the basalt delta and the magma cubes which litter the wasteland wouldn't even be a concern. This was our strategy for conquering the nether, and so we're all up to speed now. Let's get to it. We started right where we left off, in that goddamn cave with no items on our person and no wood to make more. So you know what that means, we were back to the mine shaft. As we climbed up the ladders to the top of the cave, I saw where I had died earlier, in an unshown clip. And there, on the floor, my sword. I started to run towards it, but Elliot snatched it from me right in front of my very eyes. I pleaded with him to give it back to me, but he refused. But if there's one thing that Minecraft demonstrates perfectly, it's the concept of karma. For no sooner did he steal my sword than did he fall into an inescapable pit. I had the ladder in my hand. I could let him free. But instead, I chose to leave him there until he would return me my property. He watched as I fought a creeper with my bare fist, but still would not give me the sword. I died in that cave, while Elliot stood and watched. Eventually, though, he begrudgingly accepted and handed me our most valuable item. After getting over our little sibling rivalry, I set him free and went mining for iron. Meanwhile, Elliot went to the surface to get wood. I grinded all of our gear back again, making us full iron armor, shields, tools, weapons, and anything else essential. In the meantime, Elliot literally did not get a single block of wood, which was his one job, so I was kind of carrying the team. This point was confirmed by what he told me as I was mining away, gathering resources for our team, toiling away in the coal mines with blood, sweat, and tears stinging my eyes.
Before, I was doing it for the memes. Now, this is legitimately
You purposefully were killing yourself?
On occasion, yes. I was falling in holes when I was doing nothing, and because I would have... Yeah.
Oh my god. This hurt. The idea that he was purposely sabotaging our operation, the idea that we could have conquered the blazes in the last episode, it stung more than any blood, any sweat, or any tears ever could. But finding iron managed to make me feel better about this betrayal. My pickaxe was just about to break, and right as I was about to turn around, I found iron. I feel like that guy in that poorly drawn meme, where it's like turning around right before he reaches diamonds. Usually paired with a picture of the 1726th page of Pornhub.
1726th.
You never know what's going to be on that next page. You just got to keep going, man.
I know, it's funny. I'm going to be real with you. I could scroll on Pornhub forever.
Regardless, by the time he got back, we were ready to begin the second phase of our plan. Equipped with some diamonds I found, and the rest of our iron gear, we returned to the Nether, for the first time since our insufferable defeat. And almost as soon as we had entered, Elliot met his demise. He thought it wouldn't have been a big deal, thought he would just re-enter and grab his stuff again. But while he had been out looking for wood, he found a village. He had slept there and broken the bed to take it home with him. But what this meant is that instead of respawning in our cave, he appeared all the way back on the starter island and would be forced to venture back. This was awful news. While he was making the long trek, I immediately got to work mining gold for trading with piglins. After a while, I had enough gold to trade, and it wasn't long before I had a few fire resistance potions and some crying obsidian which could be made into a respawn anchor. This would keep us safe in the Nether. But just as I finished, Elliot told me that he had returned from his pilgrimage. I immediately ran to the portal. Right as I stepped through its purple glimmering gate, I was greeted by his disturbing, elongated villager face, his luscious unibrow. We couldn't contain ourselves. This was cause for celebration.
I can't stop this feeling
Deep inside of me.
my mind. Something,
Girl, you got me hoping for another time. Or something, I don't know.
Yeah,
When you
I don't know
hold
hooked
me
on a feeling.
in your arms so tight, you make me feel everything's alright. Hooked on a feeling.
Oh fuck! No! I forgot I didn't set my spawn!
This was a goddamn tragedy. Every man should have the right to sing Hooked on a Feeling without having to fear for their lives. Now, what I truly find so funny about this whole situation is that not 20 minutes prior, Elliot had the gall to call himself the productive one. Yet between the purposeful deaths, the time he spent swimming from the starter island, the unproductive trip to the surface, and the resources he lost along the way, we all know who was truly carrying the team. But when he returned once again from the starter island, something changed within him. He was no longer the same out-of-context Elliot I once knew. No, he was ready for battle. He was prepared to die for this challenge and would not let anything get in his way of completion. Now it was time to move on to Phase 2 of our operation. Elliot would scout ahead and get me the coordinates for the Nether Fortress, while I would dig a tunnel all the way there. As I stood outside the Basalt Delta waiting for the crucial information, Elliot told me he had a better plan. Curious, I listened.
I have a different plan. Not gonna lie, I think this is a legitimately good plan.
What is it?
I'm gonna dig a tunnel to it.
That's exactly what the plan was.
Oh.
That's why I need the cords.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna dig a tunnel to it going through the thing.
But it didn't matter that Elliot hadn't been listening to any of the plan I told him. All I needed for him was to accurately describe to me the coordinates of where I was going to be digging. If he could manage this one simple task, the mission would be saved.
Stay here.
What are your cords? What are your cords at the ladder hole? The big hole with the ladder.
At the ladder hole. All right. At the ladder hole. Let's see here. Hold up. So when you go in at the base of the ladder,
the giant pillar of ladders that goes up to the center of the foot of the tower.
Yeah. So yeah, the ladder itself or the block on the top of the ladder.
The hole, if you're going up the ladder, if you were climbing the ladder, what would your cords be?
Is it the ladder, is it the top of the ladder, or is it the bottom of the ladder?
I don't care about the Y value, just the X and Z.
No, I'm saying because if you were at the base, and there's a block you stand on to go up the ladder, and then once you get to the top of the ladder,
oh my god, if you're climbing the ladder, if you're midway through climbing the ladder, what's your X and Z?
Okay, so that is 151, 253 is the X and Z. Despite this, we eventually connected the tunnel all the way to the fortress, and armed with our fire resistance potions, we were ready to tackle our nemesis. We returned to the spawner that had been the death of me in the last episode, and quickly blocked it off. Although we only had a minute or two of fire resistance, since we were working together and we both had shields, it wouldn't even matter. All that was left was to spawn camp these poor blazes. Despite below average rates, it only took a few minutes before we had more than enough rods. We escaped the fortress through the back, avoiding the dozens of wither skeletons that blocked the entrance. But after that, it was smooth sailing. We both made our way home and stashed our rods, grateful that we would never have to endure the torture of the fortress again. However, before we could fight the Ender Dragon, half of the puzzle still had to be solved. We may have had the rods, but we had below average pearl drops when we were trading, and so we still needed many. And for that, we would both need to set out in search of a bastion. And luckily for me, it wasn't long before I found one. I carefully scaled up the side of the blackstone behemoth, one slab at a time. I reached the top, peered around the corner, and saw not 2 blocks from me an army of brutes. I scrambled, running back the way I came. Fortunately, their pathfinding is kind of dog shit, so I was able to knock them all into the lava below with no issues. With that, I stole the gold and got out of there as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Elliot had been gathering nether gold piece by piece, and together we had a couple stacks of ingots. We used this to trade with the piglins, and before long we had 7 pearls. Now, if you aren't too familiar with the process of beating Minecraft, we basically needed a hell of a lot more. But we had exhausted all the gold in our vicinity. We could only think of one solution: killing Endermen in a warped forest.
So while Elliot was off doing who knows what, I put this plan into motion, and brutally slaughtered one after another in the hopes of collecting their eyeballs. Using this method, I managed to collect 4 more pearls. The rest we would have to rely on finding in stronghold chests. Now that we had our Eyes of Ender, the method of choice for finding the stronghold was educated travel. Now, if you aren't familiar with this, basically we would throw a pearl in the overworld and keep note of the direction it goes in. Then, in the Nether, we would travel in that direction, covering more ground quicker, until at an ideal coordinates, and then we would build a portal there. This would drastically reduce our travel time. It was while we were making our way through the Nether, guided by the direction of our pearl, that we came across Nether Fortress not 100 blocks from our original portal. If we had found this fortress earlier, we may have been able to avoid all the pain, all the hardship, and all the sorrow of the previous night. But it mattered not. We pushed on and eventually found our way to the overworld. We embarked on a boat ride, much like before, but this time with hope and passion in the air. We followed the direction of the eye all the way to a tiny island. It was here where we chose to sleep. Little did we know then, but the stronghold was directly below us. After traveling about 100 blocks further, and almost dying along the way, we eventually realized that it had been beneath us the whole time, and dug down cautiously. Victory was within reach. And I know what you're thinking, this is all moving so quickly now. But one major obstacle still remained between us and victory. That, of course, was the Ender Dragon fight. We had spent hours without jumping, and had tackled every imaginable challenge. There was only one thing left to do. It was time to kick some dragon ass. We spawned in the end and immediately began digging our way to the main island. The plan was to destroy as many towers as we could with our 3 arrows each, and then to try and finish the dragon off with beds. As soon as we entered, me and Elliot both destroyed a tower each, but an issue quickly arose. I had accidentally stared in the direction of an Enderman. He had started chasing me. I had to think fast. My genius brain went into its full hyperspeed mode, just as it had in the previous episode when I was drowning. The only way for me to escape death would be to find shelter in a place where the Enderman couldn't attack me. My health was already too low to kill it myself. I scrambled for the obsidian tower. As I ran by, I placed down slabs 2 blocks high, but the defenses were incomplete and I couldn't stop running unless I wanted to end up dead. I circled around again and tried to take cover, but he could still hit me. I had to keep running. I made a few more laps around the pillar and was pushed down to half a heart. If I didn't perfectly place this final slab, it would be the end of me.
Oh god.
Look at those gamer plays. Oh my god.
I missed the last.
Oh my god, I'm such a gamer.
Oh wait, oh my god.
The Enderman didn't know who he was up against, but I couldn't linger in my victory for long. We had more pressing matters. I prepared the obsidian for the 1 cycle, a feat which I had performed a grand total of 0 times. I possessed confidence entirely from watching speedrunners 4-bed the dragon, and so my idiot self thought that I could easily do the same. I'll let you guess how it turns out. Anyhow, while we were waiting for the dragon to perch, I shot down 2 more towers, exhausting the last of my arrows. Then me and Elliot scurried around on the outside of the island, waiting for the goddamn dragon to perch, waiting for a chance to slay the beast. Only, she decided to make her move right as I wasn't looking. I fumbled into action too late, missing a crucial ender pearl throw and screwing everything up. I'll let you watch the rest of this clusterfuck from behind your judgmental screens. It took me like 5 trips around this pillar to place it.
Marching, go!
I just messed that up. Oh, of course I messed it up.
God, he's hitting me, he's hitting me. Don't think that's the way you're supposed to do it.
I know! You're supposed to do it while he's perching, but I took too long.
Keep stealing him. Don't save him, save the bed. Save the bed.
All my stuff burnt. Like, all of it. This was going very badly, just like anything we tried to accomplish in this challenge. With most of my beds burnt and my armor gone, we were defeated. And thus, we chose to continue the fight the old-fashioned way. Screw beds, screw 1 cycles. We were going to climb to the top of the obsidian pillars and destroy the last of those goddamn end crystals. And then, we would smite the dragon down and steal her baby. Now you may have realized already, but there was one slight problem with this plan. We couldn't jump. I know that's been a forethought in this video more so than the last, but this was a real problem. It left only 2 ways of scaling the pillars. The first, easy way, was to climb with ladders to the precipice. But if you recall, I shitted on those very same ladders for the better part of 10 minutes last episode. As a result, we had almost none to our name, certainly not enough to even climb 1 pillar. That left the final option, which was to spiral our way up the tower using slabs, one half block at a time. This was a treacherous journey, one I took willingly and bore the burden of entirely. Elliot helped support me from the ground. I clawed my way to the top of the first tower, barely having enough slabs to spare, before setting off the crystal with a bang. 1 down, 2 to go. I did the same for the next pillar, slab after slab, block by block. It was a grueling fight, but eventually, I made it to the peak. 1 in crystal remained. However, this would be far more dangerous than the last. I didn't have enough slabs to spiral my way up anymore, so I'd have to bridge from my previous tower. All it would take was one drive-by shooting from the Ender Dragon and I would be a dead man. I teetered on the edge of my cobblestone bridge, clambered over to the final tower, slammed my fist against the floating glass and marveled in the victory of what we had accomplished. We were so close now, so close to beating the game without jumping. We were almost there. I could feel it, in the air.
What I'm talking about. That better be in the video.
I was wrong. That was the feeling of air rushing past my face as I fell to my death. But this minor setback did not dissuade me from completing the mission. I would slam my sword through the pregnant belly of that Ender Dragon if it was the last thing I did. After recollecting my atoms, I started to whittle down the health of the Ender Dragon. As it continued to perch, I continued my process of slowly killing it. The Ender Dragon was taking her final breaths. Her time was limited. As she perched, I knew that this would be the end. What we'd been striving towards this whole time, it would be finalized in the next 10 seconds. I purled into action, making my way into the well. Began to count every hit, down until the dragon's death. 5 hits left, 4 hits, 3. Elliot and me were screaming. We were ready to be done with this goddamn challenge. 2 hits, 1 hit. All that was left was a final swing of my axe, the perfect conclusion to this tragedy. We had struggled in the desert and on the oceans, swimming for our lives. We had struggled in the Nether, dying time and time again to the hordes of blazes that littered the fortress. We had died in the mines while grinding our gear. We'd made dozens of trips from the starter island. We'd failed over and over, but that was all going to end now. I readied myself for the final swing. Not a sliver of health remained in the dragon's health bar. Watch as history unfolds in front of your very eyes.
Yes, perching.
Go! Get him!
I just messed up.
He's right there. Head's right there. Get him. Take it out.
Yes!
Take it out.
Yes!
Take it out. Yeah! Get him! Get him! Get him!
No!
Get him! Get some! No!
No!
Our dignity was gone. The dragon was taunting us now. We could feel its sneer. But it didn't have long left for the world. We were more determined than ever to kill this absolute asshole. As I returned from the stronghold, I saw Elliot about to die, but this time it wasn't with despair. As the Enderman pushed him down to his final heart, he whispered to me, "Take this sword, take it and finish what we've started together." He perished then, but I saw, lying on the ground, what was my Excalibur, a diamond sword. And I was King Arthur. "I'll avenge you!" I shouted, and grabbed with the might of 1,000 men Elliot's legacy, a shimmering blue broadsword. I charged towards the dragon, Elliot's life resting on my shoulders, the burden of 1,000 men. It had to be done. This would truly be the end of an era. But then, as I saw the dragon perching in front of me, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I couldn't mar this perfect sword, the memory of Elliot, with the blood of a dragon. No, I had to do it myself. I put the sword away and armed myself with a bed. Hands shaking, I killed the dragon that day.
Watch this. Let's go! Yeah!
Let's go!
It was over. Our misery, our pain, it had come to an end. And at the top of this success we stood, knowing the odds we had overcome, the triumph we now held in the palm of our hand. That very sword now rests in a valley of daisies, half buried, hilt sticking from the ground, marking the ever-peaceful grave of my fallen friend. On a crisp autumn day, the breeze still sings his voice through the air, and in spring, the flowers bloom, giving life to his soul just as his body has given them theirs. As for me, I have moved on to bigger and better things. As for what this might entail, you'll just have to stick around and find out. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Unfortunately, it took longer than anticipated because I'm a lazy son of a bitch, but that being said, more is to come in the near future. I plan on uploading some videos of a server me and Elliot run called Dumbasses SMP, and I also plan on branching out my content to some other games and live streaming. As for when my next video will be, it's up to time to tell. I need a few days to mourn the death of my friend. One day you can always see when I release something new though is by hitting subscribe and turning on notifications. As someone who puts effort into their content but is still very much starting out, you, the single person watching this right now, will have an exceedingly great impact on me. When someone has millions of subscribers, a person's individual impact is meaningless. But to me, you make every difference in the world, and I will always appreciate you for it. And that's true regardless of whether or not you subscribe. If you sat through this entire video, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.